The White House in Washington, D.C. You are looking at the most famous building in the world. Every child in America can draw it from memory. Every foreign leader has stood at its white gates and felt the weight of what it represents. It has survived wars, fires, assassinations, and scandals. It is the symbol of democracy, of freedom, of the most powerful nation on earth. And almost nobody knows what really happened inside its walls. Because the White House has a dark side, a side that the history books skip over, a side that press secretaries deflect with carefully chosen words, a side full of secrets that were buried, covered up, and locked away, sometimes literally, behind those famous white walls. Today we are going to open every door. The year is 1792. George Washington, his portrait on the American $1 bill, the father of the nation, has just approved the construction of the President's house in the new capital city. Architects in powdered wigs sit at wooden drafting tables, drawing the plans for the future White House. Construction workers arrive with horses and carts loaded with Virginia sandstone. And then the question arises, who is actually going to build this thing? The answer is one of the darkest facts in American history that almost nobody talks about. Enslaved black men and women in iron shackles. This is who built the White House. Not just a few. Historians have documented enslaved workers who quarried the stone, laid the foundations, mixed the mortar, and carried the timber in the brutal Virginia summer heat. Among them a man named Tom, owned by a man named Leonard Dodd. Another named Peter, whose last name was never recorded because the people who owned him did not think his last name mattered. A group of enslaved men cutting sandstone in a Virginia quarry with iron tools, sweating in the summer heat. These are the men who built the symbol of American freedom. Men who were not free. The White House has a plaque commemorating almost everything. The architects, the presidents, the renovations. There was no official acknowledgement of the enslaved workers who built it until 2020, 228 years later. The most powerful symbol of freedom in the world was built by people who had none. August 24, 1814, a map of Washington, D.C. with British troop movements marked in red. The United States is at war with Britain. A British force of 4,000 soldiers marching in red coats through the empty streets of Washington, D.C. The American defenders have fled. President James Madison on horseback riding away from the Capitol in panic. Inside the White House, Dolly Madison, the president's wife in a period dress, is doing something remarkable. She is not packing her clothes. She is not taking her jewelry. She is standing in front of a massive, full-length portrait of George Washington on the wall, ordering her servants to cut it out of its frame. Dolly Madison's hands carefully rolling the giant Washington portrait, she refuses to let the British capture it as a trophy. She loads it onto a wagon with documents and silver and disappears into the night. 2 hours later, British soldiers walking through the front door of the White House. They find the dining room table still set for dinner. The food is still warm, wine bottles on the table. British Admiral George Cockburn, a large man in a naval uniform with a smirk on his face, sits down at the head of Madison's table, pours himself a glass of Madison's wine, and makes a toast. Then British soldiers carrying torches from room to room, setting the curtains, the furniture, the wooden floors on fire. The White House burning against the night sky of Washington, D.C., flames pouring from every window, the roof collapsing inward, smoke rising over the Potomac River. And then A massive thunderstorm rolling over Washington, D.C., rain pouring down on the burning building, putting out the fire as if God himself had decided the White House was not finished yet. What remained, the blackened stone walls still standing in the rain, smoking, gutted, empty. It took 3 years to rebuild. When the workers finished, they painted the scorched stone walls white to cover the burn marks. That is why it is called the White House. The year is 1893. Grover Cleveland, a heavy-set man with a thick mustache, the 24th President of the United States, sitting in his White House office looking pale and tired. Doctors in dark suits examining Cleveland's mouth with instruments. They have found something. A tumor, growing on the roof of his mouth, the size of a golf ball. A map of America with newspapers on top. The country is in the middle of a severe economic depression. Banks are failing, factories are closing, millions of Americans are out of work. Cleveland and his closest advisors in a private meeting speaking in whispers. If the public finds out the president is seriously ill, the financial panic will get worse. They make a decision. Nobody finds out. A private yacht called the Oneida docked on the East River in New York City. This is where they performed the surgery. Not in a hospital, on a boat, in secret. Cleveland lying in a chair bolted to the yacht's cabin floor, doctors cutting into the roof of his mouth, removing a piece of his jaw. No general anesthesia because they are afraid it will kill him. The yacht rocking gently on the water while they operate. They remove the tumor. They fit him with a rubber prosthetic jaw so his face looks normal. Cleveland recovers in private. The American public, people reading newspapers on city streets, has no idea any of this happened. When a reporter from the Philadelphia Press gets hold of the story and publishes it, Cleveland's team tells the country it is a lie, a conspiracy theory, fake news in 1893. The full truth does not come out until 1917, when one of the doctors publishes his account 9 years after Cleveland's death. The President of the United States had secret cancer surgery on a yacht in the middle of a national crisis, and the country found out 24 years later. The White House at night, all lights off, the building dark and silent, the American flag lit by a single spotlight against the black sky. Every president who has ever lived in the White House has reported strange things. Not one or two, almost all of them. Abraham Lincoln's ghost, a tall, thin figure in a black coat and top hat, is the most reported apparition in White House history. Lincoln's bedroom on the second floor of the White House, now used as a study, Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands visiting the White House in 1942, staying in the guest bedroom, she hears a knock at her door in the middle of the night. She opens it. She sees a tall man in a top hat standing in the hallway. She faints. When she recovers, she describes what she saw, and the description matches Lincoln exactly. Winston Churchill, cigar in hand, in a silk robe, refusing to sleep in the Lincoln bedroom during his entire stay at the White House. He never explains why. He simply asks for a different room. Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of Franklin Roosevelt, sitting at her desk in the Lincoln bedroom late at night, saying she often felt a presence in the room, that she sometimes spoke out loud to it. President Harry Truman, writing a letter to his wife in 1946, his handwriting visible on White House stationery, writing, "The White House is haunted, sure as shootin'." He reports hearing knocking on his bedroom door at 4 a.m. When he opens it, an empty corridor. Ronald Reagan's dog Rex, a small Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, refusing to enter the Lincoln bedroom. Standing at the doorway, barking at something invisible inside the room, backing away. refusing to go in. The Lincoln bedroom door, closed, silent, dark, and whatever is on the other side of it. The White House from above, the perfectly manicured lawn, the fountain, the curved driveway. Everything looks calm. Everything looks normal. Now go underneath it. During World War II, workers digging in secret beneath the east wing of the White House, construction happening at night, materials arriving in unmarked trucks. The Presidential Emergency Operations Center, a bunker buried deep beneath the White House, built to survive a direct bomb hit. Reinforced concrete walls 3 feet thick. Air filtration systems, its own power supply. Communications equipment that can reach every military commander on Earth. This is where Dick Cheney, Vice President, sitting in a chair in an underground room, was taken on the morning of September 11, 2001, while the Twin Towers were still burning and before anyone knew if more planes were coming. Secret Service agents running through White House corridors. They grab everyone. Staff members, aides, secretaries, all of them pushed toward the bunker entrance, moving fast. The bunker door, a massive steel vault door, thick as a bank safe, closing behind them. Above ground, the White House lawn, empty and silent. Below ground, the most powerful people in America sitting in a concrete room, watching the world on screens, waiting. But here is what almost nobody knows. The bunker you just saw, that is the one they show on tours, the declassified one, the one in the history books. There is believed to be at least one more level below it, deeper, more secure. Built during the Cold War when the Soviet Union had nuclear missiles pointed at Washington, D.C. Its exact location, its size, its contents, classified. The government has never confirmed or denied it exists. Somewhere beneath the White House lawn right now, there are rooms that have never been photographed, corridors that have never been described in public, secrets that are still secrets. Richard Nixon, recognizable face, dark eyebrows, heavy jowls, sitting alone in the Oval Office at night, the room lit by a single lamp, an almost empty glass on the desk beside him. The year is 1974. The Watergate scandal is collapsing around Nixon like a burning building. The tapes have been released. The votes are not there. Everyone around him is telling him it is over. Nixon, walking alone through the dark corridors of the White House at 2 a.m., the Secret Service following at a distance, watching, exchanging glances. Nixon stopping in front of the portraits of former presidents that line the walls, large oil paintings in gold frames. Lincoln, Jefferson, Roosevelt, Kennedy. And then Nixon beginning to talk to them. His chief of staff, Alexander Haig, later describes what he saw. Nixon standing in front of the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, speaking out loud, asking Lincoln what he should do, his voice echoing in the empty corridor. Henry Kissinger, Nixon's Secretary of State, one of the most powerful men in the world, being called to the White House in the middle of the night. He finds Nixon on his knees in the Lincoln bedroom, crying, praying out loud, asking God why this was happening to him. Kissinger later tells colleagues he left that room genuinely unsure if the President of the United States was having a mental breakdown. The man with his finger on the nuclear button, on his knees on the floor, talking to God, while the most powerful country in the world waited for him to make a decision. November 22, 1963, Dallas, Texas. President John F. Kennedy, young, smiling, hair blowing in the wind, standing in the back of an open limousine, moving through cheering crowds. The Secret Service agents riding on the running boards of the car behind him, the crowds waving American flags on both sides of Dealey Plaza. And then, the shots. Kennedy slumping forward. Jackie Kennedy in her pink suit crawling across the back of the limousine, the motorcade accelerating toward Parkland Memorial Hospital. What happened next is the most debated question in American history. The Warren Commission report, thousands of pages stacked on a table, concluding that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, firing 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. But here is what the report does not fully explain. A diagram of Dealey Plaza showing the trajectory of the bullets, the famous magic bullet theory, where a single bullet is claimed to have changed direction multiple times to cause 7 wounds in 2 men. The Zapruder film, the home movie taken by a bystander named Abraham Zapruder that captured the assassination, being purchased by Time Life magazine and locked away, not shown to the American public for 12 years. The autopsy photos, taken at Bethesda Naval Hospital in Maryland, being immediately classified and handed to the Kennedy family, who locked them away. In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, a panel of congressmen sitting in a hearing room, concluding that Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, contradicting the Warren Commission directly. The full CIA files on the Kennedy assassination, boxes stacked in a government archive, still not fully released to the public as of today. Delayed, postponed, classified. More than 60 years later, the files are still not open. Whatever is in those files, whatever the most powerful intelligence agency in the world did not want the public to read, it is still locked away somewhere in Washington, D.C., possibly just a few miles from the White House itself. The White House Situation Room. A low-ceilinged, windowless room beneath the West Wing, screens covering every wall, a long conference table in the center. This is where the most consequential decisions in human history have been made. October 1962. President Kennedy and his advisors sitting around this table. The Cuban Missile Crisis. Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba pointed at American cities. 13 days where the world came closer to nuclear war than it has ever been before or since. Kennedy at the head of the table, military generals on one side pushing for immediate airstrikes, civilian advisors on the other side urging negotiation, and Kennedy in the middle, alone with a decision that could kill 100 million people. The Situation Room during the bin Laden raid, May 1, 2011. President Obama and his entire national security team crowded around a screen, watching live drone footage of a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The famous photograph. Obama in a small chair to the side, Hillary Clinton with her hand over her mouth, military commanders in uniform, all of them watching in silence as Navy SEALs move through the compound. 25 minutes of silence, and then the words through the radio, "Geronimo, EKIA. Enemy killed in action." The room exhales. Some people close their eyes, some bow their heads. Obama leans back in his chair and for one moment, just one, the most powerful man in the world looks like a man who has just watched something he cannot unsee. This room has no windows, no natural light, no connection to the outside world except the screens on the walls. The people who sit in it make decisions that change the lives of millions of people who will never know their names. It runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single day of every single year, whether there is a crisis or not. Somewhere right now, people are sitting in that room, watching, waiting, ready. The White House at night one final time, lit white against the dark sky, perfectly still, perfectly quiet, the American flag moving gently in the wind above the north portico. Look at it one more time. Really look at it. From the outside, it is exactly what it has always been. The same white walls, the same columns, the same perfectly trimmed hedges, and the same iron fence. It looks like a postcard. It looks like a symbol. It looks like the building you have seen 10,000 times on television and in textbooks. But you know now what is underneath that image. You have seen the foundation laid by hands that were not free. You have seen the burn marks beneath the white paint. You have heard the knocking on bedroom doors at 4 a.m. that no one could explain. You have stood outside the bunker door and understood that somewhere below it there is another door, and possibly another one below that. You have walked the corridor at 2 a.m. with a president who is talking to portraits on the walls. You have sat in the Situation Room during the 13 days when the world came within hours of ending. You have looked at the boxes of files that are still classified, still locked, still hidden, and asked yourself the question everyone eventually asks: what is in there that they still do not want you to know? The most powerful building in the world has walls, and walls keep things in as much as they keep things out. Right now, at this exact moment, there are people inside that building making decisions you will not hear about for years. Decisions that will affect your life, your country, your world. Made in rooms you will never enter, by people whose names you may never learn. That has always been true, from the first stone to today. Whatever happens next in that building will shape the world that everyone outside those walls is living in. Your world. The world your children will inherit. That is the real dark history of the White House. Not the fire, not the ghosts, not the bunker. The history that is still being written, right now, behind those walls, under that flag. The fact that it never stops. The famous photograph. Obama in a small chair to the side, Hillary Clinton with her hand over her mouth, military commanders in uniform, all of them watching in silence as Navy SEALs move through the compound. 25 minutes of silence. And then the words through the radio. Geronimo, EKIA. Enemy killed in action. The room exhales. Some people close their eyes. Some bow their heads. Obama leans back in his chair, and for one moment, just one, the most powerful man in the world looks like a man who has just watched something he cannot unsee. This room has no windows, no natural light, no connection to the outside world except the screens on the walls. The people who sit in it make decisions that change the lives of millions of people who will never know their names. It runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single day of every single year, whether there is a crisis or not. Somewhere, right now, people are sitting in that room, watching, waiting.